Welcome this morning to Westlake's KDLA Channel 6. We have the Ask Senator Ronnie Johns with us today. And so with that, I want to say that Ronnie Johns has been our senator for, this is your first term.
My first term, Dudley.
But he has served Westlake now. I've known Ronnie for over 20 years.
Right.
Easy said, probably a little longer than that. But we have gotten along very well, and one thing Ronnie has done for the city of Westlake is stand behind it, with it, took care of his citizens, takes care of the city of Westlake. He's always been there for the city of Westlake. So we want to tell you that we appreciate everything that you've done.
Well, thank you, Dudley, and I appreciate those kind words. The 12 years that I spent in the House, I did not actually represent Westlake.
Yes,
but the attitude that I've always taken is that we represent Southwest Louisiana as a whole, and that's what's made our delegation a little bit unique, is that we all work together to help each other out. So it's been a pleasure. But Westlake is now in my Senate district, and I'm proud of that.
Me too.
Growing up in Bunkie, Louisiana, Westlake is kind of like a sister city, you know, about the same size, same type of people, good work ethic, good people, hard-working people, and it's kind of how I grew up. So proud to be Westlake's and Moss Bluff and most of Calcasieu Parish's senator.
We're pleased that you're there.
Well, thank you.
I'm Dudley Dixon, and with me is Richard Baggett, who's going to be asking some questions. We've been on Facebook with telling the people that Senator Ronnie Johns is going to be with us today. And with that, we've got a few questions that we're going to pass on to Ronnie. But the first thing I'd like to do is maybe get Ronnie's idea as to Senator Johns' idea as to how the session went for him, for our area.
Okay, well, thank you. The session just ended about a week ago, June 2nd, 6 o'clock on Monday night. We had to end the session. It was an 85-day session, a long session for us. And I will say it was an interesting session. Some people said we didn't get much accomplished. I think we did. I think a lot of good came out of it. There were 1,969 bills introduced. 1,284 on the House, 685 on the Senate side. And how many of those actually passed, I'm not quite sure, but probably about a third of those usually, as a rule of thumb, actually get through the process. You know, as always in any year, the budget is the main focus, and I'm fortunate that I have the privilege of serving on the Senate Finance Committee. It's an 11-member committee. That's where the budget is debated, it's massaged, it's developed on the Senate side. The budget has to start on the House side, then it comes to the Senate side for a lot more debate and a lot of changes. And I'm part of that. It's a very time-consuming committee. We meet a lot of weekends. We meet a lot of nights. I didn't come home the last 3 weeks of the session at all, so because of that process. But we ended up with a balanced budget. The good thing about Louisiana is that we have to balance our budget. We cannot do what the federal government does. We cannot borrow money to balance our budget. We cannot spend what we don't have. We cannot run up a deficit. We have to walk out of there with a balanced budget. And I wish the Congress of this country had to do that. We wouldn't be sitting there with an $18 trillion deficit on top of the taxpayers. So we walked out with about a $24.6 billion budget. That's about 3.2% less than last year. But the decrease in that funding is primarily through some federal funding issues. About a third of that, a little over $8 billion of that is state general fund money, our state income taxes, our state sales taxes, our state fees, our state corporate taxes. About $8 billion accounts for that. The rest of the budget is federal money that flows through the state, primarily for health care and education. I feel good about the budget. We were able to do some good things for higher education. We created a $40 million fund. It's called the WISE Fund, W-I-S-E, and it is going to be used primarily for workforce development programs at our colleges and universities and our community colleges. So stop and think about what we have going on in Southwest Louisiana with the workforce needs that we're going to have. So McNeese and Sowella both are going to be able to prosper greatly from this new fund, and we felt very, very, good about doing that. Our state employees are going to get about a 4% pay raise, the first pay raise they've had in 5 years. We're far behind in helping our state employees. We've got some very loyal people. Sometimes our state employees get a bad rap, but I can tell you, I know that the majority of them work very hard, and for not having a pay raise in over 5 years, it's tough. And we were able to do a pay raise this year. Our state police are going to get about a 4.5% pay raise, and there again, they have not had a pay raise in a little over 5 years. If the public knew how little our state troopers actually make out there, they would be shocked, and we're trying to do something about that. So we have some other funding mechanisms coming that we feel like are going to help state police in the future. So there were some other issues that popped up that were of local interest. There were some recommendations in the budget, particularly in Senate Finance Committee, that would have closed 18 offices of motor vehicle, our local offices where we get our transactions done, where we get our driver's license renewed. They were going to close 18 of them. 2 of them were in Calcasieu Parish. One was in DeQuincy and one was in Sulphur. And that would have left us with only 1 in the entire parish that would have been in Lake Charles. We put a stop to that. And we are now assured, as the session has ended, that that's not going to happen. The other issue was to lower the number of hours of the ferry down at Cameron from 24 hours a day to 18 hours a day. We put a stop to that. Of all the recommendations for cuts that were made, only 2 of them were changed, and it was those 2, the Office of Motor Vehicles and the Cameron Ferry. So we, as a delegation, felt very, very good about what we did there. But I'll be glad to answer any questions, talk about any other issues that were in the session. A lot of bills that went through that have a lot of impact on a lot of people, but be happy to entertain any ideas or any
the questions is coming off of Facebook, and
right.
And so we're given an opportunity for the people to ask these kind of questions, and I think that they're justified in trying to find out what's going on.
Absolutely.
You're the man to tell them. But before we get started on to you, because one of the questions was dealing with the alarm system we have, and of course the alarm system is for let you know that there's a hurricane or a tornado or anything that would be catastrophic in the area. To test this thing, we do this every Monday at noon, somewhere's in that area, but every Monday is going to be tested. So you're going to hear the sound. And when you hear the sound, it doesn't mean the sound is you're supposed to go inside and you're supposed to turn on your TV and watch whatever the broadcast is. But the sound on Mondays at noon generally is the fact that they're just testing it to see that it's working like it should, and this is done throughout this area. So you have to understand that that's what's going to take place every Monday at noon. Sometimes you'll hear it clearly, sometimes you'll barely hear it, depending on whichever the wind direction is blowing. So not to get alarm on it on Mondays at noon, but anytime you hear it other than that, chances are there's a problem. So we'll go on. But from that, we'll just go into the questions other questions that people.
I want to ask you a question. Okay, a young lady contacted us on Facebook, and she has a problem with one of those speakers. It is aimed directly into her son's bedroom. And so, well, my question is, I mean, who would she contact about moving,
Well,
or just pointing in another direction?
yeah, I don't think the movement will take place. Now, as far as pointing in another direction, I don't know now if they're isolating. I mean, circulating 360 degrees now or not.
Okay.
Rather than having multiple megaphones out
Right.
to different.
Yeah, it was a question. It was a question that was asked.
But to get to the crux of it is that they need to call the preparedness. Yeah, emergency preparedness.
Right,
group and-
emergency
yeah,
preparedness,
yeah,
and that's through the
Calhoun Parish.
through the police jury.
Yes.
So
I'll bet
I
you
would suggest to
Harry Vincent could get us in the right person.
Yeah.
to-
Well,
Right.
it could have, but I would say to them, if they contact the Office of Emergency Preparedness, they would take a look at it, but I think it'll have to be approved by the police jury before they could get it
Good,
changed.
good, okay. Well, we're
So
going to
Hal
let her know.
McMillan would be another person that
Right.
we might contact.
Okay, we're going to let her know.
Okay.
Right.
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
We talked about the motor vehicle offices that we kept open.
Right.
Okay, now today that we see more and more of these independent guys opening up those type offices.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
They're called tag offices.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question is, why wouldn't we just close these offices down completely and have the tag offices with independent operators investing their own money? And I'm asking, okay?
Well, I will tell you that the tag officers do a very good job. They're there for convenience to our constituents. The flip side of it is that there's an additional cost to that
Okay.
transaction. And by state law, they are allowed to charge up to $18 more than the state charges at the Office of Motor Vehicles. Now, some people do it for convenience. The lines are short. You don't have a wait time. You go in there, you get your transaction done, and you're on your way. But there's a cost to doing
Sure.
it. It's a private business. They've got to make their profit. They have overhead. Could it be done? Absolutely, but it's going to be a cost to our constituents, and that's what we.
Okay. Just curious. I was just curious about that when you
Right.
mentioned it.
Right.
You made a comment a while ago about our state troopers.
Yeah.
You're right. Those guys, what people don't realize is those guys are working weekends to make their families work. Those guys. Anytime you see them out there, it's amazing how little those guys make, putting their life on the line, and just same as our police department. Those guys are, people just have no idea how little.
There are some local police departments that start out their policemen at a higher salary than state police can start out their troopers at, and that's a fact. And we're trying to do something about it. Beyond the 4.5% pay raise that we're doing, we passed some other legislation that's going to create a fund in the future through insurance policies that lapse. There's a reinstatement fee. Those reinstatement fees are going to go into a fund that's going to help pay for state trooper pay, for sheriff's housing of state prisoners, and a little bit will go to the district attorney's offices around the state.
Okay.
So,
Very good. Tell us. What's how Westlake? How did we do? How did Westlake come
Westlake did incredibly well, and I'm very, very proud of that. In terms of capital outlay, there are actually two separate budgets in our state. There's the general operating budget that we talked about earlier, but there's also another budget called the capital outlay budget, and that's where the state funds a lot of road projects, a lot of projects out at the universities. McNeese is doing incredibly well in the capital outlay process. There's just going to be some really neat things going on at McNeese. But with that said, Westlake and also the Moss Bluff area came out extremely well. This is where we are in Westlake that came out of the bill. They had submitted a project for a new water well, $425,000. We got it. It's in priority one. Ellis and Linda.
No, so I'll know. Priority one means
Priority
it's
one,
absolutely coming.
the money's there.
Okay.
It's happening.
Good.
It's not,
Okay.
It's not a wish list.
Okay.
So Ellis and Linda Drive improvements, we've now got that moved up to priority one, $2,115,000. Got that done. There's still money out at the golf course development of some capital outlay money for the clubhouse, $1.6 million.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
Okay. The $1.6 million that we have for a clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, we can't just, y'all are not going to just give us $1.6 million for us to go build what we can.
No,
We've got to come up with some, is it matching funds? Is it a percentage? What is it?
There's got to be some match there. I'm not quite sure how much match was done on the golf course. The original match was $5 million. Okay, that was the original match.
Back in the days.
Back when the golf course
Right.
was developed and everything.
Who was the mayor then? Oh, that's right.
I think I might know that.
Yeah, I remember that guy. He got $5 million.
It is an absolute jewel.
Yes,
I have
what
people from all over the state ask me about the Westlake Golf Course.
That's great.
And I
It's a
said,
great
don't
course.
call it the Westlake Golf Course, call it the National. And occasionally I get to play out there myself, but it's just a beautiful development.
But now, it was built under the present administration, so just so we get it all straightened out.
But I think we know where the vision came from.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
We were
So,
very fortunate.
But anyway, with that said, there's still 1.6. But here's what I'm really proudest of the most. The city of Westlake needs a police station, a new law enforcement center in the absolute worst way.
Yes, it is.
And the mayor and the council came to me a couple of years ago and asked us to start working on some capital outlay money. As we stand today, or as we went into the last few days of the session, we had $150,000 in priority one and $850 in priority five. Priority five is not bad. It's trailing money, okay? So we had a total of $1 million. I was actually able to and also there was going to have to be some match. I was able to do an amendment where we put the entire $1 million into priority one. And there's still going to have to be a little bit of match, but not as much as we had anticipated earlier. But the bottom line, we've gone from almost nothing 2 years ago to $1 million of real money for that law enforcement center for Westlake. It's much needed. I'm very proud of that.
Yes,
so
we're very proud of you.
We're very happy to do that.
There's going to be some policemen that are really happy.
Oh.
So I know that
certain.
the administration should be moving on that project very shortly. There was another project that I was able to get in at the very last minute into the capital outlay bill in Gravity Drainage District 8, which is over in Moss Bluff. It's called the Belfield Drainage Improvement Project. Absolutely much needed. We were able to get $3.1 million into that project for them. Some of it, about $900,000 is in priority two, the rest is in priority five. But priority five is not bad, if you remember the old capital outlay process.
So what's going to happen? So everything in priority one is going to get done first.
It gets, that money's there.
That's done.
Right.
But
anything in priority two, it's got to be the administration, the governor's office has got to recommend it to the bond commission that will meet in October. And there's only so many dollars that can actually be bonded out. We will make our case to get the $900,000 in the Moss Bluff project into that bond sale. And if it does, the rest of it, once you start spending priority one money, if there's any money on priority five, it will automatically trail down the road. So that money's there also.
So next year it could become a 4?
No, you don't want 3 or 4. 3 or 4 wish lists.
Okay.
It's just not going to happen.
Okay.
I know it's an odd system where 5 is better than 3.
You would think the numbers would actually mean something.
It is.
It sounds good.
Yeah. But in terms of this viewing area, and I know this broadcast goes into Vinton. I don't have the numbers for Vinton because I don't represent Vinton. But they did very well also in capital outlay.
Wonderful.
And Representative Mike Danahay and Senator John Smith did an excellent job of helping Benton out. So we've got some great things that's going to happen in Calcasieu Parish over the course of the next 3 to 4 years in terms of capital outlay.
Okay.
So,
Hey, I want to revisit the match. I want
Yeah.
to make sure because I know at times it confused. You know, I would think, okay, the state's got $1.6 million for our clubhouse.
Right.
Let's take the $1.6 million and build a smaller clubhouse.
that's up to the city of Westlake.
But my question is, would y'all allow that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We're not telling them. The project has to be approved by facility planning, of course.
We're very lucky to have this money.
But yes.
Oh, sure.
We are.
But
That's a lot of money sitting.
that's
in
a lot of
priority
money.
one.
Yes,
So,
With the needs that we
Right.
have in this state, and we're talking about a clubhouse,
Yeah.
this is a huge amount of
and let me
money.
tell you, this is very unique to have 4 projects in one city this size of Westlake and to have all of them in priority 1. So
Probably-
very
That makes
unique,
us
I can
proud.
tell you. So,
Probably speaks well of our senator.
Yes, it does.
And
it's all about relationship building and
Yeah.
working together with other people.
Of
to
course,
make it
now
happen.
there's a whole delegation out there. Brett Guyman is our
Brett's
representative.
Brett's another
And
great
Brett's another
great asset.
Yes, he
Right.
is.
And
So
of course,
that's where
having
we
the
are.
Speaker of the House isn't a bad
And
deal.
having the Speaker of the House, Chuck Leckley, has just been absolutely phenomenal. We're going to miss Chuck. He term limits out after the end of this term, and having him as Speaker, the first Speaker of the House in over 100 years from Calcasieu Parish, has been just huge for us.
And he's done a great job.
He has.
I mean,
Yeah,
no one
very-
can say
very
no one can
productive.
say anything
Yeah.
about his abilities. He has done a great job.
Right.
I've heard nothing but positive things about him.
Yeah, I have to represent one district. He literally has to lead 105 districts. And that's the difference.
That's how many
in
phone
being
calls
the
he gets.
Speaker and just being a regular representative, so,
Yeah, that's a bunch of phone calls.
Yeah, that's more than you.
a lot.
That's right. A lot more phone calls than I get.
A lot.
That's for sure.
So, you got any further questions or
Well,
anything else that you want?
the part
go through, or?
everybody, the talk here is the clubhouse. Everybody wants to know about the clubhouse, and so I wanted to know if we about the match, because at one time I was told that they're going to put up $1.6 million if we put up $500,000 or $600,000. Okay, and then I was told, well, if we build a $3 million clubhouse, they're still going to put up $1.6 million, but we have to put up the rest.
That's correct. We cannot exceed that 1.6.
Okay.
I mean, that's the maximum that we're going to get from the state.
Okay, all right, that was the question. But you guys would not require any match. You're going to give us the 1.6 if we build a clubhouse.
I think there's still going to be a little bit of match,
Okay.
okay?
No, what do you think the match? And I'm not holding you.
I really don't know. I'd
Okay.
have to go
You
back
have
and
to
see
hold him
what,
to that, and you don't want to hold him.
because I was
No, I
not privy
know.
to the information of how much match
I understand.
was done on the golf course itself. And
Okay.
that's going to
So it's
play.
50.
That's going to play into
I
it.
think it was, 100%. I think it was a $5 million outlay that went to the city of Westlake, but there was also another $5 million that we had to match it up with, to
Right.
build roads and that
Okay.
kind of stuff. with
Match for match.
infrastructure.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
But we could use properties, assets,
Right.
those kinds of things that we already.
In-kind match.
Right.
Right.
That's
Value of
also-
land.
Now, also,
Right.
there was a state road that was put in all the way through the clubhouse, from off of Sampson Street on to Johnstein Road, that would take some of the traffic off of Sampson and put it off into another area where they could get to the industries a lot easier than they could. So that was another thing that the state had done for the city of Westlake.
Right.
So,
Well, it sounds like unless we get you off the finance committee, you're not playing golf anyway.
No, not much.
It sounds like you're not out there.
It's some very, very long hours, a lot of Saturdays, a lot of Sunday afternoons while we're in session that this committee meets. It's a huge obligation. Take it very, very serious. We have to. We're spending taxpayers' money, and we have to balance that budget. The hardest part is sitting. That committee actually has two different functions. It has to develop the budget, but it also has to hear any bill that has a fiscal impact, that has a cost to it, those bills are dual referred. That bill may go through Commerce Committee, and if it passes there, then it's going to get dual referred to the Finance Committee because there's a cost. And it's very hard to sit there and listen to someone who has a good idea, a good bill, something that it would do a lot of good, but there's a tremendous cost to doing it. And the staff does what's called a fiscal note for us, and they give us what they project the cost is going to be. So you may sit there with somebody who's got a good idea, a good piece of legislation, but the cost on it may be $30 million or $40 million, and you got to say no. You just have to draw the line, and you can't.
Just like our house.
That's right.
Just like in our home.
That's right.
Some things you can't afford.
You just can't afford it, and you have to say no. And good legislators with good intentions, but there's a cost to it.
Yeah.
And so I'm one of those 11 members who says no a lot more than I get to say yes.
Yeah.
And
We're doing the right thing.
but doing the right thing. Doing the right thing with our tax dollars.
I've got a question that I need to ask you too. The Tea Party now is asking Jindal to veto the real ID
Right.
legislation. What is your opinion on that?
Let me tell you, I voted for the bill, and I'll tell you why I voted for it. And we all have concerns about our information being public and everything.
Okay,
but
tell us about the bill, so everybody will know.
Well, what it does is that it ends up going kind of in depth. It's like a TWIC card. You know, the TWIC card is out there. You go in and you answer all of these questions, and it gets your identity to allow you to get into areas that you have to be authorized to get into. So they're trying to do now, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Right.
that you end up with your license being like a TWIC card. All the information is out, you go through it. So when you're going through the TSA at an airport, you hand them your driver's license, and you say to them, here's my driver's license. They look at the information, and they know that you have this real, R-E-A-L, ID, and so they pretty much will pass you through. If you have just a regular driver's license, chances are they're going to shut you down, start checking you, asking questions, going through your luggage, that kind of thing. So
this comes from the federal government.
Yes.
And in 2016, in order for you to fly, even on a domestic flight, if you fly from Lake Charles to Houston, you either have to have a passport or you have to have a real ID. This starts in 2016. State didn't do this, the federal government did this. So, if, as Dudley said, if you don't have the real ID identification, you're going to come under heavy scrutiny in the airports. The bill that we passed has a lot of safeguards in it. First of all, and let me just say this to the public, it is strictly optional. It is strictly optional. If you don't want a real ID license, you don't have to get one. It just doesn't. It just will not happen.
take your passport.
Just take your passport. Well, like somebody said, the passport's probably got more information on it than the real ID would have on it. So the other thing is that there's just a lot of safeguards that were built into the legislation. The bill got amended, I can't tell you how many times throughout the whole process. From the House side, it was a House bill, came to the Senate, went back to the House again for concurrence, ended up in conference committee with more amendments. So a lot of thought, a lot of process, a lot of conservative people like myself always have concerns about it. But if we didn't do something, then our traveling population here in Louisiana is going to end up with a huge problem in 2016 at every airport in this country.
When they show up to the airport,
Right.
it's going to be an issue.
Colonel Mike Edmondson, the colonel at State Police, was a huge advocate of this legislation, and he helped us tremendously in working out a lot of the safeguards that are going to be put into the equation. So There were legitimate concerns. I think early on, the last couple of years, this has been a big issue all over the United States. But I think with what we have done here in Louisiana, we're not putting any of our constituents' personal information at jeopardy, and I'm very confident in saying that.
And that's a
the
big deal to
and
you
I'm
guys.
I'm gonna reiterate one more time: it is strictly optional.
Yeah.
It's not mandatory.
But the database, anything to do with the database,
Right.
the Senate is absolutely against it. Am I right?
Right.
I mean, you guys don't think
Yeah.
it's the government's business.
No, it's not. It's just.
I had a bill up there that we all worked on, and Ronnie said, Richard, he said, the reason I'm not for this is, he says, I don't believe the government needs to know this.
Government can know too much.
He said,
sometimes,
and, you know, so I'm sitting there, and I hung the phone up and sitting there going, well, I was supposed to tell him I was okay with what I knew he'd be okay with. And he's telling me he's against it before I told him about anything. But the one thing, my dealings with Ronnie over this last session were very good, and I enjoyed the fact that I've always heard that Ronnie is going to tell you the truth. You may not like it, okay, but he is going to tell you, and he did. He told me I knew exactly where I was, and I got to tell you, he was easy to talk to, and always returned my phone calls.
Well,
And I was very appreciative.
That's what we're there for.
Oh, I understand.
That's the way I
I think
run
I'm
mine.
not sure everybody completely on that same program,
Right.
but I appreciated it. Hey, I've got a couple of questions that you may not be able to answer, and if not, we're gonna figure out who can. Okay, Mayor, I'm gonna ask, what is the status on an overpass in Westlake?
That is tied, Richard, into the new I-10 bridge. That is all one concept of having access into Westlake over the railroad track. Very much needed. We want it to happen. One of these days it will happen. But it all ties into the issue of the new I-10 bridge. And that, of course, is all tied into federal funding. It's going to take an appropriation from Congress in the federal highway bill, which they do about every 5 years. I think we've got another highway bill coming up in a couple of years. From the state level, our delegation has been very much on top of DOTD and their responsibilities on some engineering and stuff, and they have made it an absolute priority for us. There again, Speaker of the House Chuck Cleckley, myself, have met with DOTD, with Sherry LaBaugh, the head of DOTD, who's wonderful to work with. They have made it a priority from what the state can do. There were some environmental issues from the spill. I think those issues have been cleared up, and they've gotten beyond those environmental concerns. And so we just hope to see the federal funding on this thing come about, and we can get started. So you will notice a lot of work going on at the off of Lakeshore Drive. Finally, after I don't know how many years, we've been working on getting the federal funding for the Rhine Street exit. That's happening as we speak right now. So
That's probably 10, 15 years old.
right.
That's how long it's taken to get there.
Exactly.
Now, I want to interject in this.
Sure.
In the same question here. We had, it seems like I heard John Crater and Hal McMillan both say that there was going to be an overlay on the entrance into Westlake. Are you aware of anything?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I'd be happy to check on that, though.
Okay. Well, and if you would,
Sure.
we need to know that. So at a later date we can find out.
No, we
So,
would.
Yeah. Now, at one time we had the overpass separate from the bridge, so it's been put back together.
I think that the concept is going to be a continuous exit off of the I-10 bridge into Westlake. And, there's all kind of designs out there, but I think they're all kind of going to interconnect with each other.
Okay.
So you don't believe this is going to happen this week or next?
Not next week. Not next week.
Okay.
You know, it's
Just
probably
curious.
a $500 million project. It's probably 500 million or more.
Yeah,
Is what
the
it's going to take.
overpass, and this is back when, it was $40 million just for the overpass.
Yeah.
And then it was something like $120 million to build the bridge. Now that was back, that's $160 million that you would be looking at for an overpass and a new bridge across Calcasieu River. And this is a low-rise bridge, it's not a high-rise bridge.
In what year?
That's probably,
About 2005,
or maybe before.
2004,
yeah.
somewhere in that
But-
neighborhood.
And prices
But-
have actually gone up in
but-
some of these industries.
Oh, yeah.
Road projects.
Every year it goes up.
Road projects are so expensive. It is just absolutely amazing.
For a few $100,000, you could put a mile of road in.
Right.
Now it costs you $1 million to do that.
If you see what we're doing on Interstate 210 from Nelson Road to the bridge and the new configuration there, that's $80 million. $80 million is the cost of that. And,
But now everybody's putting into that.
yeah, now that's correct. We were able to get $40 million of state money to do that, which was
And the other 40 million is coming from?
Local.
20 million is coming from local government, 20 million is coming from the casinos. So the casinos they're stepped up to the plate.
Good,
Put up
good,
20
good for
million.
them.
So-
They certainly
So there
benefit.
again, it was about a 50-50 match.
That's good.
of what
Go
we
ahead with
got.
your question.
So-
I'm sorry
Okay.
I interrupted.
No, this one is going to probably be the same thing. What is the status on an evacuation route leaving? This is more of an emergency prep guy question than you.
And I guess they're talking about the continuation of Sampson into 378.
They are. As
yeah.
a matter of fact, if I'd have read the rest of it, that's what it would have said. It
You
said,
know, I found out
leaving.
in my first year in the Senate, if you want to meet a whole lot of your constituents on one night, you talk about putting a road through a state park, and I said that in a little humor, but it was one of the concepts that the engineers had come up with, and it got people's attention, and rightfully so.
Right.
That was never going to happen. It's not going to happen. That road will never, ever go through the state park. We've got commitments from the state not to do that. But there again, we have some capital outlay requests in to make that happen. I'm hoping in the next couple of years we can at least get it into the capital outlay bill. But we're talking about probably $30 to $40 million to do that also.
Versus our need of the bridge and the overpass or the underpass of 500 million.
Yeah. So it's a lot of money, but we're going to do our best to try to secure it.
Then this last question, I think we've answered. Funding for police department, we've discussed that.
Yep. That's going to happen.
Yeah, that's very
That's
good.
gonna happen.
You
And
were
much
able to,
needed.
Much needed.
Much needed.
It's on a rainy day like today, you could understand if you were sitting in there with the captain watching him move boats, pots around catching water.
Right. Exactly.
You're right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or fighting off the termites. in
That's
general,
right.
so,
That's right.
yeah. Well, Ronnie, I don't know what to say other than just thank you for what you have done. You have been an asset to Westlake as long as I can remember.
Well, thank you.
And,
You know, I tell people I'm very, very lucky to represent the district that I represent, but I'm even luckier to live where I live. We're all lucky where we live here. When you travel this state and you see how poor some areas of this state really truly are, and the condition of their roads, the condition of their school systems, very little tax base, very little revenue resources coming in, very few jobs, and for us to live where we live today and see what we have here, we're fortunate, ladies and gentlemen. We really are. We have a lot to be thankful for. Can it be better? Always can be better.
Always be better.
But we have a history here in Calcasieu Parish of working together. The mayors work together. The police jury works together. The school board works together. Our legislative delegation works together. And when we can do that, we can make some things happen. And it's happening now. It really is. But thank you for your kind words.
Well, I appreciate you.
I appreciate the years that you spent in public office and sacrifices that you and your wife made
I was very fortunate.
for the people. You are a great mayor, and I'm proud to know you. And I know I'm proud that you're on our Lake Charles Port Board now.
Yes, thanks
and y'all are just doing a phenomenal job
yes.
at the port, and it is the economic engine of this this area.
Well,
we appreciate that.
And in a kind word, I appreciate it. But the Port Board is the first board I think I've served on that there's no hidden agendas. Everybody's working in the right direction, and that's to make Southwest Louisiana a better place.
Well, we're proud of that, so thank you for your service there.
Thank
Richard,
you.
thank you for your involvement in the community. I know you're involved in a lot of things, a lot of charitable causes, and
an investor in Westlake.
And an investor in Westlake, and we
Yes,
we appreciate your commitment
It's
too.
good.
So.
It's good to be here. Great. Been here 20 years now.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody said, "Where are you from?" I'm thinking after 20 years.
And I would like to encourage my constituents to call my Senate office, 491-2016. Lexi Jackson, who's from Moss Bluff, is actually my legislative aide. Very fortunate to have her. She's a phenomenal lady who really cares about helping people. But we want to hear from people. We have, our email is great to email our office. The legislature has a very very wonderful website, and it's very easy to access, very easy to contact us, very easy to contact any legislator across the state. So I would just encourage people to go to the Louisiana legislature and use that website. It's very, very good. A lot of good information there.
All right, Ronnie.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Appreciate you.
Richard, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to close our show, and we always want to remember Don Manuel for everything that he's done for this area, and I just want to say to you that Ronnie Johns is still the best man that I know in the government, and as far as I'm concerned, he should stay there for as long as he's allowed.
Term limits.
Yeah, term limits will get you there every time, but anyway, I want to say that you'll be able to view this. Hopefully, we'll be showing some slides on this on Facebook, as well as KDLA Channel 6 in Sam Acuff. We appreciate you allowing this time for us to come in and tell the people what's going on with our community.
And they've offered now, we're going to try to put it on YouTube. Okay, we're going to try to put it on YouTube. That was a request made today. So if Mr. Acuff and company can work with us, that's going to be our goal. The preference is to always watch Westlake Cable. Yes. But for those people that don't have it, okay, that's going to be an option.
So you're going to be spread out. All right. Okay. And with that, we thank you, and may God bless you, and we will shut our meeting down.